Greetings, my fellow Americans. This is H.J. Armstrong, citizen, scholar, saint. Today, I would like to discuss an issue of the utmost urgency. My study of American history and politics has proven beyond any reasonable doubt that America functions best when there is a preeminent bull queer at the helm. For most of our nation's history, bull queers have put America on the right path, and the country has then strayed away from what is best when there is not a strong hand on the tiller. These periods without a preeminent bull queer are called interquarrials, and not all of them have been dire. However, we are currently in one of the longest interquarrials in our nation's history. The last time that we had an interquarrial which lasted this long, we ended up fighting the War of Northern Aggression. Thus, there is a hard necessity that we find a preeminent bull queer and allow him to use his queer cartel to its fullest effect to keep our nation at peace and lead us to prosperity. Donald Trump has been aspiring to become the new bull queer of America. By right, he won the election of 2016, and this should have inaugurated a new era of American greatness. However, his rivals would not allow that to be. From behind the scenes, Barack Obama continued to snipe at his successor. Obama, a big government man to his core, wants to destroy queer cartels and put bull queers out of business for good. Hillary Clinton, on the other hand, wanted to be the first preeminent bull dyke, and she was the prime mover of the legal efforts to paint Trump as a traitor. Eventually, the Democrat Party settled on Joe Biden as their nominee, and after setting up the right voting machines and getting the post office to help out, they got him elected president. They knew that Biden was too feeble and incompetent to establish a queer cartel, even though Biden has long sought to extend his own humble little queer cartel out of Delaware. Full disclosure, I am not a Joe Biden fan. However, we would be in a significantly better place today if he had defied the odds and become the preeminent bull queer that we need so badly. This leaves only Donald Trump. His predilection and desire is right, and he is the closest thing to an open bull queer as we have ever had, yet he is still struggling to firmly establish himself. By looking at America's first preeminent bull queer, John Adams, who had to fight an uphill battle to establish his own supremacy, I hope that I can find the magic formula for getting Trump and his queer cartel back in the business of running this great nation. Let us consider the mighty struggle that John Adams was forced to endure in order to establish himself as the first preeminent bull queer. He had built up a strong queer cartel in New England, but he had little sway in the Middle States and none in the South. In the South, most of the major planters were bull queers, with one major exception, General George Washington. Washington had extraordinary charisma, and this negated the need for a queer cartel. In fact, he did not discover that bull queers existed until the second term of his presidency. His warning against political parties was his warning against queer cartels, although a number of people misinterpreted his words. Thomas Jefferson, whose broad mind still could not grasp bull queers and queer cartels, was among those who misunderstood and thought that political parties were based on ideas. However, John Adams knew better. Adams served as vice president, a role defined by the president and with no real duties. He was seen as politically dead for 8 years, yet he continued to go out and court new members for his queer cartel. At this time, he was inappropriately challenged by younger, more minor bull queers such as Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr, both of whom he despised. All three of these founders understood that the presidency was the ultimate prize for an ambitious bull queer, and each of them understood that it was unlikely that there was enough room at the top for all three of them. The Constitution itself, in fact, carved out a strong executive precisely due to the urging of ambitious bull queers who saw themselves filling the role one day. John Adams became the nation's second president in 1796, but this did not automatically make him the preeminent bull queer. The first problem that he faced is that there was no precedent for a leader using his influence to lubricate the state rather than operating in hidebound legal ways. Washington's special status meant that he very rarely faced challenges to his authority. Adams, however, was quite human, and his rivals did not hesitate to go after him. An early flaw in the Constitution was that the second-place candidate became vice president, so Adams had a bitter enemy in Thomas Jefferson as his partner in government. Jefferson was hostile in the extreme and did a great deal of damage to Adams. We also have to keep in mind that Adams did not enjoy some of the advantages that Trump has. While both were persecuted and abused, Adams was prone to losing his temper and not that great on his feet when he was being insulted. His angry letters were simply not as effective as face-to-face insults, even in an era when letter-writing was something of an art. Adams was short, rapidly balding, fat once he hit middle age, and never considered handsome even at his best. Trump, by contrast, is tall, muscular, athletic, and handsome with perhaps the fullest head of hair of any president. With his devil-may-care smile and quicksilver wit, Trump makes sure that anyone who crosses him gets roasted like a duck. In 1800, Jefferson was able to suggest that Adams might be a hermaphrodite, and given that he was so fussy and stuffy about his sexuality, some people believed the rumor. By contrast, Trump's foes can only tut-tut him for successfully seducing beautiful women. Adams did have lovers, but he could not discuss his conquests of male flesh. In today's world, Trump could brag that he has experienced the best men as well as the best women, and this may very well boost his standing in the public's eye. Both men were accused of aspiring to tyranny by opponents who simply wished to promote the government ahead of the more unofficial leadership of bull queers. Both men had one term as president and were then ousted under suspicious circumstances and after their opponents had lied relentlessly about them. Adams had a rival bull queer in charge of the army for most of his presidency in James Wilkinson. Due to the government-heavy nature of the U.S. military today, Trump does not have to face a rival bull queer in camo. The last minor military bull queer was Tommy Franks, and the last major bull queer who had a shot at preeminence was Douglas MacArthur. Trump is very popular with the troops and could count on their support in any conflict with his political enemies. Adams and Trump were both abused by the media. Trump has stated a desire to sue them for slander, which is not a bad instinct. However, Adams was a more thorough bull queer, and he knew that the solution was the Alien and Sedition Act, which allowed him to silence critics who stood in the way of progress. Ironically, America's first bull queer used accusations of treason to get things done for the good of the country, and his best modern heir is being accused of treasonous activity with Russia, which is preventing him from coming anywhere close to his potential. As much as I appreciate Donald Trump's patriotism and his desire to give this country a strong queer cartel rather than just a bloated federal government, I must admit that I find his soft approach frustrating. Here is what I recommend that he do. First of all, Trump should be open about being a bull queer. The time is right for him to out himself. This could gain votes from the left for identity reasons while also removing the unjust taint of implied corruption when it comes to Trump's links with other politicians and businessmen. This would also create a very strong contrast with Kamala Harris, who is not a serious politician in any sense and cannot offer anything remotely comparable to the quality of leadership that a preeminent bull queer can offer. If the Democrats try to call him a dick grabber or complain about his queer cartel, Trump can call them homophobes and bigots. Let them have a taste of their own medicine. Trump could also tell them that they are on the wrong side of history. Second, Trump needs to gut the regulatory power of the federal government and cashier at least half of the federal bureaucracy. Most of the bureaucracy exists for the purpose of preventing bull queers and their queer cartels from operating effectively. The primary mission of Franklin Roosevelt as president was to break the backbones of bull queers on the national stage, and that he did, to the nation's detriment. Third, Trump needs to make a strong moral case. Bull queers provide discipline, and a loyal queer cartel displays the kinds of values which made this country the greatest in the world. Without bull queers, Americans would not have spread from sea to shining sea, built up the world's greatest economy, or operate a democratic society for so long in spite of a restrictive and flawed system mandated by an increasingly outdated document. Fourth and finally, Trump needs to impose some of the same discipline on the media that he imposes on the members of his queer cartel. He should follow the example of President Adams if he is re-elected, and he should declare the Alien and Sedition Act back in full effect on day one. It is my belief that if Trump follows these 4 steps that he will win the presidency in 2024 and make America great again, just as he promised the nation back when he rode down that escalator in Trump Tower back in June of 2015. America needs Trump as its preeminent bull queer. Only Trump and his queer cartel can set this country right.